couple of familiar faces. Thank you guys. um, yeah, so my story is that I'm presently, look, I'm a married guy with two kids, and let's start from the top down. And I'm here because over the past, gosh, 30 years or so, I've really enjoyed coaching kids, but it really changed about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when I started to look back at myself as an athlete. And at about the same time, I was starting to coach my own kids in Little League and soccer. And I've got a daughter who is now 20, and she was, in that 10 to 12-year-old range back then. And I just wanted to deliver the best product I could, or the best coaching experience that I could to kids. So again, I looked back at myself and I was like, well, what was missing from my experience that I could learn and bring to these kids and really make it a great time. And, it wasn't the physical piece. When I was playing, I usually one of the fastest or one of the strongest players, and it's not bragging. It's just kind of what it was.
Right.
My skills were okay, and I was able to go play in college, which is great. I wanted to become a professional baseball player, but I didn't make that next level, and so that was inside of me. And I thought, well, why didn't I make it? And is there a lesson there I can bring to these kids? And I knew why I didn't make it. It was the mental and emotional piece of the game, or myself, however we want to phrase it, that just wasn't adequate. And, back in I'm going to date myself. This is the 1980s. There weren't a whole lot of conversations going on in sports or in general culture about helping people with the mental or emotional issues to try to get them to play better.
Right.
So, we've all seen the great shift that's happened, especially in the last 10 years, which has been amazing. But back then, it was just called, hey, get tough, kid, get out there, do your best. And if you weren't playing well or in a slump, they didn't really know what to do for you.
Mm.
I had a kind of an old school coach in college. He must have been an incredible athlete, and he was a great baseball player. He was a starter in a major league all-star game as the pitcher. And that's just an amazing accomplishment, right? And he played for the Senators, I think it was 1961 or so.
Wow.
And he was a great player. But, his words to me were something along the lines of, hey, Fox, come here. You've got yourself $1 million swing and a 10-cent head. Like, oh, wow. So he was seeing what I saw, and I felt, but he didn't have any words of advice. All he had was his old school way of raising awareness to it. So I did what everybody would do in the days 12 years ago or 10 years ago, we still do, which is to get on the internet and try to search for answers. And so I was looking for training for athletes, mental and emotional training, and I found some very interesting things out there. And I started to dive in and look at them. And we'll talk about a few of these processes more deeply, but one in particular was tapping, or EFT. And, I looked at it, and again, maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago, I said, that's the goofiest thing I've ever seen. I'm not going to do that. But I kept coming back to it, and I kept reading, and I dove in, and I looked at it. And finally, after months of denying that it was something real, I tried it. And it was obvious to me that something truly happened when I first tried it on myself. By the way, everything that I do with my clients, of course, I try on myself first. And, as I'm helping people, I'm helping myself. And I think there's a great Emerson quote about that. Whenever we're helping somebody, we can't avoid that wonderful exchange where
Right.
that energy travels back and forth. So I started to help kids. I did it impromptu. I'll tell you, the first time I did this was during a game, and a very young kid, 9 years old. He tried to do something really spectacular in the game, and he didn't quite do it, and he got tagged out for the last out of the inning, and he just kind of did that silent cry that only kids can do. He's lying on the ground, and everybody thinks he's injured, and I know he's not injured. I know that he's emotionally, just spent. I happen to know him pretty well. I had coached him a couple of years. He had some real stressors in his life. There was some illness in his family. And I just said, hey, kiddo, come over here. And we stepped off the field onto the side of the fence. And I said, just do what I do. Now, mind you, he's crying like crazy at that time. So we'll talk about why that was important. And I just started to say, hey, do this with me, buddy. And kids will do anything. And he followed me right along. And all of a sudden, in about, I don't know, 30 seconds, really quickly, the color in his face goes back to normal. He stops crying, picks up his glove, and he walks out onto the mound. And he pitches a wonderful lights out inning, better than ever had before. And I thought, that was interesting. I wonder what just happened there.
That, I mean, if I might,
like
that is mind-blowing to me, because here's this kid, a total wreck, and not only has he messed up in front of his team, he's embarrassed himself, and then he's crying. So he's really at the bottom of emotional angst, right? And with how 30 seconds or a minute, just with a little bit of this, you could see him change his whole demeanor, walk out in front of his teammates where he had just embarrassed himself, and pitch a better inning than he'd ever done. Wow.
Yeah. And so it was, like you say, I'm used to it now, although I never get tired of seeing that minor miracle that happens when I work with these kids. But yeah, it was really amazing. And so I continued to what I call on the spot dabble with kids, and young kids, they cry during sporting events. That's another topic we could,
Oh, okay.
But they in our culture right now, they cry. And so I would use this, and every time there would be something happening very similar, where not only would they quickly get out of the spiral of crying, they would pick up the bat, or they'd go, pick up the ball and do something better than they ever had before. So in retrospect, I probably should have asked parents if I could do this with their child. But you know what? I knew that this was all, at worst, a benign use of time. So it was all positive, and
like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. It just might be.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Else, right? So
that's exactly right. It may have looked strange to some parents, but actually only one ever came up to me and said, hey, what were you doing? And they were just curious. They were not upset about it at all. And it led me to understand that there was something real here. I did my own clinical trial on the field, and I had enough examples over the course of a couple of years to see, oh, this is real. So then I started to get deeper into it in a more formal way. And thank goodness there are training facilities, the EFT universe is where I went and got certified and really understood this at a deeper, more academic level. And, I continued to just help kids over the past years. And I was doing things, what I'll call, more like a dentist. People would come in to me and say, my kid has a cavity, except they would say, my son has a slump, or my daughter, isn't enjoying the game as much as she used to. And, what can you do, kind of thing. And so we would address those, we would fill those cavities. But I was seeing that my clients, as wonderful as they were and as successful as they could be after getting these treatments, weren't instituting this as a lifestyle. And so I shifted my business over the past 2 years, to create more of a lifestyle program. And that's where Champion Playbook got created, out of that mindset of trying to get people, these young athletes, to realize that this is just like dental care. You need to brush your teeth every day. And that's what it's all about. And we've had great success with this. And, I've worked with clients as young as 9 and as old as college, and kind of the sweet spot is in that high school range. And that's my story.
Well, I didn't hear though, what made you look at this to begin with?
Yeah.
Yeah, tweaked your
It
interest?
was it was looking back at myself. And
Mm,
so as a college player, because I didn't make my ultimate goal of wanting to become a professional athlete, I wondered why not. And so I just tried to look objectively at myself. And, in addition to being a mental and emotional training type of coach, I've also done work on the physical side, and, do work with kettlebells, and I'm a certified kettlebell instructor as well. So I understand, when there's a physical strength, then there must be a constraint somewhere else.
mhm.
And so that's how I got into that piece of it. And as far as working with the kids, it's because I wanted them to have the best. Where that comes from, I just enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping kids in particular. Um, those in your audience here, I'm sure, are familiar with the acronym of ACEs, the adverse childhood events. And, when we can address something, this is on a more serious level, when we can address things in a child's life early on, it saves them from so much later on in life. These unaddressed adverse events that happen when kids are young, and we're talking about major traumas. We don't have to go there tonight, but when they're inside of a kid, they become adults who are much more prone to disease and mental health issues and divorce and all sorts of things that can be manifested. It can be brought right back to those early childhood events. So look, I know I'm not addressing a lot of big T traumas when we're doing things with these kids, but it's a gateway. And that's what I really look at Champion Playbook as a gateway opportunity to try to get these kids and their parents to understand that there's some tools out there that they can use that are really going to be powerful, not just in sports. I love sports, but that's just one facet of life that we all put a tremendous amount of interest in our culture. But if we can use that common ground to teach some of these things, that's what I enjoy.
Yeah. You just enjoy sharing and seeing the light in their eyes. So if anybody has any questions for Scott, and Scott, you were going to also walk us through, raise your hand or put something in the chat, and he'll take some questions. He's also going to walk us through a clearing exercise, a
Yeah,
EFT exercise, right?
absolutely. And yeah, again, if you have a request or a question, put it in the chat there. And Sally, if you can read them off to me, that would be great.
They're mesmerized. Everyone is just hanging
How,
on every word.
how about, I can see most of you. How many of you, just raise your hand, know of tapping? Okay, so I'm going to guess that's, since I see two other, most people know of it. Do we have any practitioners here? All right, good. Nikki, okay, fabulous. Well, good. So yeah, rather than just talk about it, I'd love to take you all through a session. And EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or tapping, it's such a flexible tool, and that's why I love it. We start off talking about sports and sport performance, but it can be used for, I mean, just anything, almost anything out there. And there's practitioners who have certain specialties that are amazing. Gary Craig, one of the original founders of it, experimented on so many different things. So I thought maybe we could just go through around here, and we'll work on something that is near and dear to all of us, unfortunately, which is COVID.
Oh,
And
okay. What are we
I'm
going to
sure,
clear around that?
yeah. Um, I'm certainly open to hearing people's concerns, fears, whatever it may be. If you'd like to take yourself off of mute, if they can do that, Sally.
Or if you raise your hand, I'll take you off mute if you can't get yourself off.
Looks like everyone's still on mute. That's okay. We don't really need anybody to suggest anything. We can really just intuit what most people are going through, and I think it'll be beneficial for us. Does that sound okay?
And they, you know what?
Great.
Questions might come up after. So.
Yes, absolutely. So rather than give you the nitty gritty of everything, I'd like you to just do your best and follow what I do if you're not familiar with tapping. So we're just going to tap on the side of our hand right now. Huh.
All right.
Okay. I don't know what that's all about. No problem. And we're just going to keep going here. So we'll say something like this. This is called the setup phrase. And we'll say something like, even though I hate this COVID experience that and I wake up every day dreading putting my mask on, I deeply and I completely accept myself.
And am I supposed to
say it again
out loud?
So you all can absolutely repeat this out loud, and that is the clinical EFT way. I will tell you that if you just want me to talk, it's perfectly fine. There is a concept in tapping called borrowing benefits, where if you simply watch somebody, you actually get benefits. And if we would like to do something, let's take a break from our tapping for a moment. If you truly do have some anxiety around COVID or any issues tangential to that, give yourself a ranking right now, 0 to 10. 0 is no problem at all, I can talk about it. 10 is, oh gosh, I'm about to burst into tears. And you don't have to say that out loud, but that's what we would do in a clinical EFT session, is to give it that subjective unit of distress, or SUD ranking. Okay.
And even write that down if you have a paper and pen handy, just so that, you know.
Absolutely. I
don't know, is this just because I'm expecting it, but just tapping on the side of my hand made a difference, and just I'm feeling a little more calm.
Well, I love this spot, and every practitioner has their own spot. I call this my secret sauce, or the truth serum too. Oftentimes I'll have parents say to me, how did you get my son or my daughter to talk to you like that? And honestly, it's not my skill, it's this, in my opinion. This is a meridian. I believe it's attached to the heart. And so, we're sending some soothing signals here. And there's some other good spots as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And yes, Cynthia.
Does it matter if it's the right or the left hand?
Great question. No, it doesn't matter. And there's such flexibility here with it. It doesn't matter one bit. And as you see me tapping through this process, you'll see sometimes I might do one hand, I might do two, I might do 3 fingers or 1 finger. It doesn't matter, which is a wonderful thing. So we're not doing acupuncture here. We are tapping on meridian spots, but we don't have to be as exact as we did with acupuncture needles. Okay. Let's go back to our setup statement. So even though we hate this COVID, and again, I hate that mask, and I just really don't enjoy going outside like I used to, I deeply and I completely love and accept myself. And even though I wake up and I just dread thinking about all this COVID stuff in the newspaper and seeing people on the streets having to be masked up, and worrying, did I remember my mask? And the people who are getting ill. And I just don't even want to be part of that anymore. And I deeply and I completely love and accept myself. Now we just did this 3 times. We're going to move into the next phase of this, and we're going to give this this problem a name, and it's going to be very simple, and it doesn't matter. We're just going to call it this COVID problem. Okay. Top of the head, just tap up here and just say those words, this COVID problem. You may have your own name for it, and that's fine. You can think that name to yourself. This COVID problem. And if you're muted and you want to say it out loud, go right ahead. This COVID problem. Under the eye here, this COVID problem. And again, you could do 2. Under the nose, this COVID problem. On the dimple on our chin here, this COVID problem. Right under your collarbones, this COVID problem. And a little harder one to get to, but I'll show you, is just under the armpits, just right there on the side. There you go. You can do 2 at once. Good. Top of the head. Take a deep breath. Okay. Now that was just 1 round. That's 1 complete round of basic head. And check back in with yourself. And we kept it really simple, really simple. And notice your number, your SUD. Did it go down? Did it go up? Did it stay the same? And it doesn't matter what happens. Okay. We know that certain, I call mechanical things happened. We released some neurotransmitters inside of ourselves at some level. And if it went up, if your score went up, it means that we stirred the pot a little bit. Okay, we touched on something that maybe needs to be addressed more deeply in a longer EFT session or other session. And oftentimes, though, it will go down. And in the case of those athletes that I'm working with, they have a little advantage over us in this setting, in that when they're crying or they're having their emotional breakdown, they are in the moment. Okay. We here in our safe little environments, we're not in the moment. So we have to go back into our imagination and to try and feel in our body the discomfort that we may feel when we are out in the world dealing with COVID. So let me repeat that again, because in our culture, we are really not very good at tuning into our bodies, especially guys. And you know, when I work with these younger athletes, part of the success that they get is when they learn that they can check in with their body, and there's a message there for them. And so as we go through this process here, I would ask all of you, tune into that part of your body, and we'll do another round. Tune into that part of your body where you feel distress over this particular issue. And if you don't feel it anywhere, just imagine, where would you feel distress in your body? All right, let's just try this one more time. A little different twist. Yes, Sally.
Question. Some of the areas I tapped were a little sore. Does that mean we're hitting something good, or is it just something not related?
Yeah, so there are certain spots that can become sore because there's a lymph gland nearby, or actually right there. In fact, I didn't use one of the spots. They call it the sore spot. It's basically right about there on your pectoralis muscle. And some people will use that spot instead of this karate chop spot during the setup. They'll be saying, you know, even though I'm got this problem, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not causing damage when you're tapping on a sore spot. Mm-hmm. We'll delve into something where I'm not an expert, but I will dabble occasionally, which is some reflexology. When you get those kinds of spots, it's okay to rub them a little bit. And people will tell you to do that actually to help release, again, some of that lymph that might be blocked inside of there.
Okay, good. So nice to know.
Yeah. So let's try one more time here. And again, this time in advance, think about your distress over this issue. Tune into your body. I'll tell you mine. Let me just tune into here for a second. Yeah. So mine's kind of sitting between the bottom of my throat and my sternum. Okay. It's a pretty common spot. And let's get going one more time. So I'll say, even though I've got this remaining, and I'm just using a little different verbiage here, this remaining distress over COVID and all the masks and the people getting sick and dying, and I just want things to go back to normal. I deeply and I completely love and accept myself. And even though I've got this remaining problem regarding COVID that's still in my chest, I deeply and I completely love and accept myself. And even though I've got this this strong desire to turn back the hands of time and do things pre-COVID and not have to jump through hoops and not have to worry about getting sick and not have to worry about my friends and family getting sick and wearing a mask and reading the newspaper, I deeply and I completely love and accept myself. And I would just start again and say, this remaining problem, this remaining COVID problem. Now, as we do this, try to your body that carries that distress. So for me, I'm going to focus on that chest and this remaining COVID problem. I don't want to wear a mask in this remaining COVID problem. I'm tired of looking at stats about people being sick and dying. This remaining COVID problem. This remaining COVID problem. Top of the head, this remaining COVID problem. And I'm just going to keep going with this for one more thing because I think it can be useful for you. And when you get a diagram of this, it'll all tie together. On our hands, there are some spots we can tap also. So on the side of the thumb, at the base of the fingernail, we can tap there. Then on the index, again, at the base of the nail on the outside of the finger. Middle finger, same thing. We're going to skip over the ring finger and we're going to tap the pinky. Go back to the top of the head and take a deep breath. And just check back in with yourself. And if you had to give it another number, you could do that. You could also check in physically. Sometimes there's, a somatic, there's a body healing that goes on even when we're not trying to go for something like that. I'm sensing in oddly enough, my ankles, I just have this buzzing feeling going on in there. Just acknowledge it.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Kind of a buzzing all over the place.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Does anybody have any questions about what we just did? Okay.
Oh, Cynthia does? Okay, hold on.
Good.
Yeah, that's all right. I unmuted
myself. Thank you.
I was just curious why you didn't tap on the ring finger.
Yeah, so it turns out there's not a meridian that goes through our ring finger. I don't know why, but that's how we're made. So whenever we're doing this tapping, we are trying to tap on meridian and endpoints. And so if you're, you don't have to be an acupuncture expert to be able to do this. I'll give you a little history here. The early pioneers of EFT and something that was a precursor called TFT, they were very complicated algorithms that they used, and they would have very specific spots regarding very specific emotions. And while it was powerful, just as EFT is, it was impossible to convey to the average person how to do this. And so you'd have these early pioneers. I mean, this is like back in the 80s, they were charging CEOs, $5,000 to create an algorithm for certain things that they needed to address. And through the genius and engineering mind of Gary Craig, again, one of the early pioneers, he took his engineering mind and just made this into a very simple process. And if you go through this cycle of tapping spots enough times while tuning into the negative feeling associated with something, you're gonna have great benefits. And by the way, one of the reasons that I really like using EFT with my clients is that it's been clinically tested. And so while I am a believer in many other things that I've used with my clients, EFT is great because it's defensible. It's got clinical randomized controlled trials that have been used. And after 15 or so years of lobbying, the federal government has now approved the use of EFT within the Veterans Administration hospital system, which is an amazing breakthrough. And so we're using a really powerful tool that costs nothing and can be taught to people. And one great plug for Dr. Church, Dr. Dawson Church, who did the lobbying and created the Stress Project, where he and his volunteers have treated now, gosh, over 15,000 vets who, after 6 sessions of EFT, fall out of the PTSD spectrum. Which this is incredible, and this is, again, an amazing miracle, especially for some of those Vietnam vets who are in their late 60s and 70s, around for decades with PTSD, even though they were doing exactly what the VA system asked them to do with cognitive behavioral therapy and pharmaceuticals, but it didn't work. So, you know, this is an amazing tool. I love it, and I love working with my young clients, and looking to grow the business.
Well, we have a veteran here tonight who, Claudia, did I see that you had a question? No? Okay. Well, thank you. So
thank you for your service, Claudia. That's awesome.
For that, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love it when we can support our veterans in any way. I think that is, and especially with something that they can do wherever they are.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't take 20 minutes like a pill might take, and it doesn't have any side effects. They might, you're not going to get drowsy.
No.
You get calmer, but you're not going to fall asleep. So
that's exactly right. And you hit on one of the things that I just love about it. And these tools, there's a lot of tools that can help people. I mean, EMDR is fabulous, and there's other things that are really great efficacy. But the portability aspect of it, I think, is just really key. I love that you can be by yourself in the middle of, left field, secretly tapping on yourself to calm yourself. And you can be in the classroom, you can be at work, and there's just so many benefits to it. And I think as a culture, where I'd love to take my business is to grow it in a way that it becomes an opportunity for people to normalize this type of thing, to bring it into the school systems, into the workplaces. And there are some people who have done that, but we're still very, very low on the awareness factor. And then there's the there's the cultural pieces of trying to get the decision makers to say, yes, let's institute this.
Right, because they have so many other things going on. It's hard sometimes to get that bureaucracy moving. Well, that's fantastic. And so, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was thinking of a couple things at once, so go ahead.
I was going to say, what could be useful is there's nothing like experience. I told a story of one of my clients. If you don't mind, I'll tell another one if that's okay, because I think it's really illustrative.
Like stories?
Yeah, is that I was speaking with a gentleman, as a man who had a son, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze and doing some business talk, and nothing to do with Champion Playbook or tapping. And he said, "Oh, I have to go, and I got to take my son to baseball practice." And I was like, "Oh, that's great. Does your son like playing?" I just threw it out there. And he says, "Yeah, he likes playing, but he's having a weird year. He's not hitting the ball at all." And he says, "But he's still having fun because he's a really good pitcher." Now, as a coach, as a physical coach of that, my alarm bells are going off, because I realize that usually in the baseball world, if you're a good pitcher, you're a good athlete. And if you're a good athlete, you should be able to hit the ball. Mm-hmm. So then my minds are connecting my two hats here. And I said to him, you know, I do this weird thing with young athletes that I think your son might actually respond to. And we ended up talking about that. And sure enough, he's like, yes, absolutely. You know, he says, I probably need this as his dad because I'm tired of sitting in the stands with my body clenched, just, you know, hating seeing my son come up to the plate. And so sure enough, he actually joined us in some of the program sessions, and his son quickly overcame what was such a kid trauma. That is one that adults don't understand. So he was not swinging the bat at all. He went the entire season without swinging the bat. Excuse me, he swung it one time, his first at bat. And so I got him doing this, and I said, hey, buddy, I'm not going to use his name. I think, what happened at that first at bat? And he said, yeah, he said, you know, it was my first at bat with a kid pitching to me. He says, all my other games when I was younger was having a coach pitch to me. And he said, get this, he said, nobody told me what to do. It's like, wow. You know, he just stood up there and he's like, well, there's a kid out.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
So he got traumatized. So what, first pitch, strike, second pitch, strike. He just swung the bat because he figured he must swing the bat at some point, and he struck out and he never swung the bat again. Took him through this one took a little bit longer, but maybe about 20 minutes of talking, because I like to talk and get uptake information. And then another 20 minutes of tapping. And then about 2 days later, his dad emails me and he says, hey man, this is unbelievable. My son just went to tryouts for this high-level travel team. And if you're not into the sports world, a travel team is where kids pay a lot of money. Yeah, Cynthia knows. You pay a lot of money. Your parents drive all over the world getting these games for little kids to play. And the dad said, my son did so well at this tryout that his coach from the season where he didn't swing came up to him and said, where have you been? You were unbelievable. We missed you. And he never had a problem since then. He's been great. Great. He's an all-star. And again, it was just like
confidence that the kid gets from that.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. He got his confidence. He has a tool. He got to be able to play with his friends. And you know, one of my early mentors in the energy psychology world, I was telling her what I was doing, you know, with young players, and she kind of takes a breath and swoons a little bit, and I was like, what do you mean? She says, what you're doing is great, because you know, these kids get traumatized. And she said, my son got traumatized when he was playing youth sports, and he's a great athlete and he never wanted to play again. And one can only imagine that could impact their lives as they are working out in the workforce. They need to be with other people. They have established relationships. And so, you know, all of this stuff with sports doesn't really matter that much. It's fun and it's great.
As it should be.
Yeah. But it's just my way of trying to insert some of these great tools into the culture. And parents are starting to listen, you know. I think they're seeing so much stress in their kids' lives that didn't exist in theirs. I mean, we tapped on COVID, right? We could tap on social media anxiety. What else do these kids have that we didn't have? Poor nutrition in a way that we didn't. Literally, the food that they eat now don't have as many nutrients because the soil's been depleted. All sorts of things that these kids have to deal with that we didn't have to deal with.
Right. And just even perceived slights, you know, how many times have I felt like somebody was saying something to me when it really, you know, that was derogatory, and it was not meant that way at all. Maybe it wasn't even said to me and I just happened to overhear it. So those kind of things. And if I might, I seem to remember that what you were saying, you just had the kid tell the story while he was tapping. So that could be something that we could do if we know that we have angst around something. I mean, this is more a question than a
Absolutely.
statement.
This
I
is
could just be saying, you know, I really get nervous when I see all the demonstrations and it really stresses me out. Something like that. And
absolutely.
I could just tell my little story about that as I went
Yes.
through this.
Yes, yes,
Cool.
absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that anybody who wants to email me and afterwards,
Thank you.
I'll send you I'll send you a video of another way of tapping. And this is I call it rant tapping, and other people may have done
Oh,
this. You
nice.
know, if you just rant, you got to find your space, find your private space to rant and tap while you rant, you know, while you're ranting. And it can be muttering. You don't have to wake the neighbors. It will provide benefit. It's a great thing to do. It's simple. It takes the edge off. And another one of my teachers, coaches, uh, gave me great advice is to insert tapping into your life. You got to make it into a new habit. And he said, I love this line. He's like, give it about as much thought as brushing your teeth, which is to say, not much. You just do it. And so you you know, when you're brushing your teeth, you're not really focusing too much. Maybe you are if
Hold
you
on, you're
really.
talking to a hygienist here. Watch out.
Oh,
Wrong analogy. I need
funny.
to do some tapping around that.
That's right. That's right. Well, my advice
But
then
I get
is,
what you're saying. Yes, most.
yeah, about as much thought as putting a napkin in your lap. How's that?
You
And
go. I'll take it. Scott, I'm going to go
this
ahead and put your
is
email
the
address
just beginning.
in the chat.
Absolutely.
So whoever wants to reach out to Scott to get that rant video, it sounds like it's an amazing tool. I know I'm getting it. I haven't put it in yet, folks. I'm talking too much. Hold on. It's Scott at CoachScottFox.com, right?
Yeah, and if it's okay with you, could you allow me to share the screen one moment, and I'll put my um, logo and whatnot up there?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Let's see.
Great. So hopefully people can see that.
There you go. So that's what you're looking for. And then your website is thechampionplaybook.com. Love it.
Right, right. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank
And I'm happy to also send you this lovely person, this diagram with the tapping spots on it.
you. You know, I had an acupuncture appointment, and there's some Korean acupuncture that does it around your fingernails.
Yeah.
I mean, around your cuticles, just similar to that, and it's for emotional release.
Yeah. There's so
So
much.
when you, it just, oh, wow.
Yeah, there's so much crossover in there. I've read that the Chinese over the years were doing experiments with acupuncture and emotions. So it would really be the same process we did. They would have people tune into a certain negative thought or emotion of a memory, and then do the acupuncture. And yeah, they're going to get the same results. I mean, we're just doing it in shorthand, you know, less cumbersome fashion, and still getting the same great results, which is the wonder of the human body. We don't have to know exactly where that point is. We know generally, and we'll use maybe 2 fingers, so we know that we're going to hit that spot eventually. But you know, Dawson Church, one of their founders of tapping, he'll tell you, I've been to seminars and people will be tapping on the side of their head, nowhere near the spots, and he says they'll still get some relief from it. So there's some really cool things that happen, and the human body, you know, is really energy, and electricity is energy, and that's what we're doing when we're tapping. I'm not going to get into the science of it here. We don't have time for that, but you know, all of this again is great because it's been studied. But just to let you know, I also do breath work with my clients, and I teach some postures as well, and a little Donna Eden thrown in there sometimes. And like all of you who help people, you want to have a pretty deep toolbox.
It's nice to have variety because there's always a little bit of something, and a little bit of something you can grab from anything. And that's why you're on this call with us tonight, because we have some members of the Alchemy of Healing group here, the membership group, and that's what we're studying. It's just the variety of healing modalities that are out there so that we can get the layers that are most appropriate for us and have, like
wonderful.
you said, a lot of things in our toolbox to pull out when we need them.
Yeah, I mean, for myself personally, of course, I do tap just about every day. They're not the big intense sessions, and it doesn't matter though. You know, I'm providing benefit, but I've been really interested in breath work over the past couple of months. Some varying styles out there, and I'm trying to just create my own new habits, doing some box breathing. Also, I don't know, there's some other breathwork stuff I won't talk about just yet.
Well, now I'm curious, would anybody like to hear what box breathing is?
All right, Cynthia said maybe. Yeah, okay, yeah. So box breathing, imagine, you know, we see that box. So we're gonna put a 4-second timeline on each side of that box, and it could be breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, letting it out for 4 seconds, and leaving it out for 4 seconds. So
that makes
do that over and over. Do that for about, even if you just do it for 2 minutes, you'll notice, wow, I just calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are really good devotees of it, they will advocate doing it for 15 to 20 minutes in the morning. So I'm a big believer in performance. It's one of the things that I institute with my athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And a performance routine is just a prescribed things that you do, and you can prescribe them for yourself. So for myself, I wake up, I walk downstairs, I get 2 cups of hot water, and then I go do some breathing. And then I do a series of other things. Seems like my routine's getting longer and longer, but I just enjoy it and I appreciate it. And when it's good weather like this, part of my routine, actually, I'll tell you, is at least a 20-minute sunshine walk is what I call it.
Wow.
Just get out there at sunrise, to walk for 20 minutes, and there's incredible benefits, hormones, circadian rhythms, everything gets reset by that early sunshine.
That's really cool. And this morning I was out early in the cicadas. I thought, you know, I mean, they were like chirping up a storm. So, and they're out there again. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful symphony in the mornings.
It really is. It really is. So
go ahead.
I was going to say, there's so many things to do. I appreciate, you know, talking about some of them that I do here. And I love what you're doing. You're collecting all this great information. And, you know, I think all of us have to be a little bit of Johnny Appleseed, right? We're just spreading the word, trying to be good. And to do that, you have to be a good messenger as well. So for all of us, if we can do a little self-care or a lot of self-care, it will help us as we go out into the world and be that good messenger.
Right, right. Yeah, we're all busy being the best we can be, and this helps a lot. So I really do appreciate you, Scott. Anna has a question.
Yeah.
Anna, it says ask.
There we go.
No, I'm sorry. I think you'll have to.
There you go. She's off now.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So I just wanted to comment and say how much I appreciate EFT. I worked several years with a practitioner, and it really helped me for whatever I was going through. And I keep all those words. So when something comes up and things don't work out, it's like, I love and accept myself anyway. And I don't do the whole tapping. I just think of, and I love and accept myself anyway. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was like, yeah, okay, all is well. And the other thing that she would end with is life loves me and all is well. And so that's part of what comes up for me too. It's like, life loves me, all is well, and just saying that because I've been tapping for as much and as long as I had, that it still, vibrates with me. It's still, so
Well, and
pray for
I'm
tapping.
feeling it. I am feeling it too. And I don't say that just randomly. When you said that, I can still feel this energy coming through my body. And I just love that loving, healing feeling that you've conjured up there. And
Mhm.
that's also one of the great things about EFT, the whole process. Even though there's the strict clinical version, and that's what we did, there's variants that are really good. They just haven't been studied in a clinical way. And so we all are taught the clinical way because it's been signed off on. But I love the verbiage that your practitioner used. And, when we are working with clients who particularly have some really, some serious things to work on, I think it's always important to tie up that box or that, put it in a little pretty bow, if you will, like your practitioner did. And it's my verbiage made it sound trite, but I think there's a lot to what you did, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It maybe made it a little softer and more gentle
Mm-hmm.
for the situation that it was needed for.
Yeah, because when we get into, and I have to be prepared for it, because occasionally I will have an athlete who they had their performance is slumping because of nothing to do with baseball or any sport. It is a serious trauma in their life. And, fortunately I've been trained for it and to recognize it and to be prepared with certain techniques that are gentler,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to call it's literally called sneaking away. Sometimes it sounds bad, but it's a good thing, is, we don't want to re-trauma somebody. So you have to offer gentler ways approaching some issues. And that's where, again, the good training comes in. You don't have to become certified to be a good practitioner of EFT, but it sure helped me. And I think that, the more we do, and the certification with EFT Universe is pretty intense, you'll end up being a good practitioner of it. And I think everybody also agrees that you end up helping yourself because you're doing so much tapping on yourself that a lot of stuff gets cleared up.
For everybody around you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you made a good point. There's a place that you can learn from it. You called it EFT Universe.
Yeah, so that's I'll call it a governing body. It's not really governing body, but it became the clearinghouse of information as well as a certification group. There's also ASEP, which is really, it's more for the psychologists and psychiatrists. So you have to be one of those, I believe, or at least somebody who's a licensed practitioner.
And that's, how do you spell that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. A as in apple, C as in Charlie, E as in Edward, and P as Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be for the medical professionals.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so then you did that, but you also see clients on a private basis in a group setting, mostly kids, some adults.
Yeah. So I shifted my business to being almost 100% now what I call Champion Playbook. So Champion Playbook is not a per session experience, which is what I used to do when we're charged somebody by the hour. And while that was successful, I just was unsatisfied in that it was not being used in the way that I wanted it to. I wanted it to become a part of their lives, not just to fill a void that happened for the moment. And so this Champion Playbook is a 6-module course that involves pre-recorded videos of me teaching some concept, some PDF worksheets, and then a 45 to 60-minute Zoom call. And that's been really good. And I'm always tweaking, looking to improve, but it is providing, I think, a more intense and being inserted into their lives more. And I know it is because I had a great client, 16-year-old, really sharp baseball player here in town. And about halfway through the course, we had our Zoom call. We had one of our Zoom calls, and I said, "What do you want to work on?" And he said, "Well, I have I have a chemistry test coming up and I'm really just having trouble learning this for some reason. I was like, ha ha, he got it. This is not just about baseball. And he's thinking about this in a different way now, which is great. And then he also told me at the very end of the course that he was teaching a lot of the concepts to one of his teammates in high school. Like, wow, this is great. And that, you know,
And that's what you want, right?
That's exactly it. I want
exponential growth.
I want the exponential growth. I want the buy-in. I want it to normalize it. And if a teenage boy is teaching this to another teenage boy, okay, mission accomplished.
Right. That's right. It's going to be mainstream any day now, right?
That's right. And I do work with girls too. Yeah, but predominantly I would say it is boys. And again, with the adults, I could, and I enjoy helping everybody. But I think from my business perspective, if I just woke up in the day, I was like, if I had to choose between two, I would go with the younger one. I just have a heart for them. I'd love to see, you know, kids benefit.
Yeah, my husband's the same way. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. He just loves the kids, just make him shine. You know, they just bring out the best in him too. So I hear you. I hear you. So anybody who has kids, nieces, nephews, could, you know, just sign them on over to, send them on over to Scott's website and let them check that out. Any athletes that might be out there.
And what I do for everybody is to provide a 20-minute mindset discovery call, is what I call it. And we just talk and just basically try to figure out where people's blocks are. And it works.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I know everyone else is with me to say thank you for the time that you've spent and the years that it has taken you to get to this part. Yes. So we applaud you all the way from start to finish there. And thanks for the offer for the ranch. That sounds really cool. So I look forward to trying that out.
It.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sally. I appreciate the opportunity to meet and talk with everybody.
Thank you. Let me just get everybody, I can get everybody off mute, I think, and maybe we can just all say goodbye. Oops. It's not going to let me. Everybody was so good. We're just going to wave really big at you, Scott.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you, everybody.
My pleasure. Truly my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for showing up and really paying good attention to Scott. You really offered a lot. Have a great night, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.